Hello and welcome to the Par 3 here presented by thelines.com. Matt Brown, Stephen Andress coming to you. And you know it is a video about golf because we're both wearing golf shirt. It has to be, like that's the way that everyone knows, Stephen. Like we claimed you've got your little Valhalla shirt. I've got my Kiowa shirt on. And so everyone knows we're legit because obviously you have to be able to know what you're talking about if you're wearing golf shirts.
Listen, I paid a lot of money to volunteer and get paid $0 to get this shirt.
I paid a whole lot of money to play this course in the first place, so I needed to document it in multiple ways. So I left with not only a shirt, but a hat as well, because I'm like, hey, I'm double documenting this course that cost me an incredible amount of money to play.
Yeah, by the way, sidebar, a week after you and I played when I came out to visit, I played again and had the best round I've had in like 3 years since I've had kids. And then my back hurt the next day, and it still hurts like a week later.
Oh, no.
So, like, all you middle-aged men out there that watch this pod and listen to us, like I feel your pain now. Like I'm supposed to go play
literally.
Yeah, like serious. It hurts sitting in this chair right now, for the record. Like that's how screwed up I am. It's been a week since I last golfed. I'm supposed to play with another friend tomorrow. I don't know if I can. So I might be on the couch watching the Beamer this week.
Stephen, hey, look. We had a good week last week on the old Par 3 here. So well, let's keep it rocking and rolling with everything and give you the tee box.
All right, so go check out John Hasselbauer's preview. It's a fun read this week because this course hasn't hosted a PGA tournament, a PGA Tour tournament. So we're at over 8,000 yards on this golf course, but it's at elevation. The kind of consensus is you take 10% off of that and you get the true yardage here, right, Matt? Like you've played elevated. You're in Nevada. You've had this experience, right?
Yeah, it's I think we're kind of estimating here on this, but yeah, I mean it's 8130 that is supposed to play anywhere between 7350 and 75, and I think people are saying that even on the longest that it may play would be 7,600, which still is like, that's Torrey anyway. So it's not like it's like this crazy long course given everything that we get. Also some elevated tee boxes and things. And so you're going to get extra carry. So it's interesting, but the course in and of itself, I do think is interesting strategy this week, Stephen, mainly because one, you got to figure out how long your clubs are going to go. So that's a dial in process that everyone's doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then you have all these fairway bunkers that are right in landing areas. So it's like, oh, are we actually going to see more less than driver than we thought with all this? And then there's lots of water holes. There's 10 different water holes. So now our guy's going to play a little bit more conservatively or whatever. So there is some nuance to Castle Pines over there outside of Denver. And I'm very, very interested in watching this tournament go down and how these guys are going to navigate this place.
The two things that I took away that helped me kind of build how I wanted to figure out which stats to use, it seems like the fairways are generous. They're quite wide. So, and it also seems that anytime we get to this BMW event, if you look at the history of it, even though it's been on many, many different courses, they always jack up the speed on the greens. This is like a fast green, lightning green situation where it's a playoff event. They want to make it tough on the greens. Yeah. So with that in mind, I want driving distance. I want a lot of it in the model this week. So that's a big deal for me. I don't think this is going to play with the elevation adjustment like a middle-of-the-road course on the PGA Tour. So like I am in a bit of disagreement with John Hasselbauer when it comes to that. So I don't want a guy like Colin Morikawa. I don't want a guy like Shane Lowry. I want the bombers here because that would mean even with the elevation changes, they still have wedges in their hand and some of the other guys might still have middle irons.
Yeah, and Stephen, remember, when I say elevation changes, that also can mean that you're teeing off uphill.
The other way.
It's not always downhill. Yeah, it's also uphill. So there's that to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, so long-winded way for me to say the first guy I landed on was Tony Finau. He's from Utah. He's used to these types of situations. He already has a pretty decent idea of what his distances are when he gets to a course like this where he needs to adjust for playing at elevation. Over the last 24 rounds, he's number one on the list behind Scotty and Xander, so number 3 overall for me. He's top 15 in this field over the past 24 rounds in driving distance, and maybe more importantly, number 2 in strokes gained on approach. So not only can he bomb it down these generous fairways, but he can hit these greens with pinpoint accuracy, it seems, right now. And if the green speed is jacked up, where fewer putts are going to go in than maybe like, last week at the FedEx where everybody seems to make putts. That helps Tony Finau because we've seen him finish highly in the U.S. Open where you're playing on these plateaued greens where it's tougher to putt and tougher to hit greens. So in a situation like this, now I like Tony, but with a caveat. I've done this a lot this year. I have a ton of respect for Scotty and Xander. So even though you can get around 30, 32 to 1 on Finau overall, I opted for the 20 to 1 on Finau in the winner without Scotty and Xander market.
Yeah, I don't blame you because I'm going back to the well with mine that we got last week. We got this home. We're going to do it again, and it's just a Scotty Xander parlay, depending on how aggressive you want to get. Top 10 pays about minus 120, 125, depending on the book you get at, and top 5 is somewhere in the plus 225 to plus 230 range. Of course, Steven, these are ties paid in full book, so make sure that you're doing it at a ties paid in full book, but you're looking at a field of only 50 golfers. You're looking at a field of only 50 golfers in which about 40 of them are playing 10 of them are playing like complete garbage right now. So like they got in just because they accumulated so many points early on in the season. But
Max Homa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm going to give it away. Guess who was dead last in my model, by the way? Yes. Max Homa. Yes. Dead last. Max Homa, dead last. In my model this week in all of this. So like there are a lot of guys that, so I'm looking at it, okay, about a 40-person field. Come on, dude. Xander and Scotty are going to finish in the top 10. I'll pay a little bit of juice on that, and then I'll also play the top 5 for the upside of both of those dudes sitting there about plus 230. Like I said, it's a scenario where they are the two best golfers in the world. They are the two best golfers in the world that continue to prove it week in and week out. And if there are two by the way, Xander used to live here in Vegas. I don't know if he still has a house here or not, but like he's used to playing at elevation as well and all that. So, so there's a lot in all of this to where you just look at these guys and maybe they don't win it, Steven, but would you not just be completely blown away if these dudes weren't in it come Sunday? I would because of how consistent they have been all year long.
I mean, if you're going to a course where nobody's played it before in tournament setting, everybody's having to do the same amount of homework as everybody else, wouldn't you think just natural talent's going to come to the surface?
Exactly.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
If that's the starting point. So that's my belief with those.
They're both
two guys.
long. They're both accurate. They
Yeah.
both, the irons are tuned on both of these dudes. You can look and sit there. You can take it out to 36 rounds. They're first and second, and you can bring it into to 12 rounds, Steven, and they're first and second. That's what it is. Like the last 36 rounds, these guys strokes gained approach first and second. Last 12 rounds, strokes gained approach first and second. Like that is the consistency all the way out to 36 rounds, and as recently as the last 3 tournaments they've played. So it would baffle me if one of these guys went out there and laid an egg. It really would.
Yeah, maybe this is contradictory. You tell me if it is, but like that's our belief with Scotty and Xander. But behind them, in a new setting where everybody's on an even playing field with course knowledge, etc. If we look at the Bombers, I now think you might have a situation where somebody down the board finishes highly, where you might get a little bit of randomness behind the 2 elite golfers in the field. So that led me to go a little bit of bargain shopping down the board in the winner without Scotty and Xander market for my second choice here behind Tony Finau. And it was Taylor Pendrith at 55 to 1 still in the winner without market. And a couple of reasons why. He was already top 15 for me just overall in the past 24 rounds. But with my belief that they're going to jack up the speed on these greens,
Supposed to run at a 13, by the way.
Okay.
So, it's going to be, it's going to be lightning. It's supposed to run at a 13.
Yeah, it's this course was already designed to play like a major. There's shades of Augusta with the wide fairways and whatnot, and obviously the green speed would match that as well. So when I filter for only events where the green speed was fast or lightning fast, Pendrith all of a sudden catapults into the top 10 for me. Number 5 in driving distance, number 19 strokes gained on approach. He's green across the board except for strokes gained putting where he's 27th, but it's my belief that putting's not going to matter as much this week with the speed as much as they are. So number 7 as well, if he misses these greens and strokes gained around the green. I think Pendrith has been playing really good sneaky golf. I think this price is just wrong. I think he should be ahead of some of the guys that are on the board above him. And he's coming off the FedEx St. Jude where his distance off the tee was mitigated and he still gained 4.2 on approach with his irons. So I think this course is a perfect fit for him, and he's already got a win under his belt on the PGA Tour season this year.
I'm going to take a guy who I normally don't bet because the win equity is so low, but now where he is showing up in my model comparatively to where you can get him in the odds market, it just, to me, it had to trigger a bet. And Steven, I got to be honest, like, I did not find much value this week. I thought the odds were pretty good. Like, I thought they were pretty on. And so it was just tough for me, but I will say this. So Tommy Fleetwood, 5th overall in my model, had to bet him. You can find him close to 30-1 out there, 28, 29, 30, something like that in the market. It's just one of those things where he's everything you want in a golfer other than a guy that can close it out in his win equity. And again, I fully expect Scotty or Xander to win this tournament, but at 30-1, if I'm looking at guys that have the firepower to go and compete with these guys, why I liked Hideki last week, that type of course for Hideki, it's the same thing for this type of course with Tommy Fleetwood. You look at total driving, which is driving distance and accuracy blended together. He's 6th overall in this field, so he can get it out there and he can get it out there accurately. Then you go and you start to look, where is he at? Let's say in the last 24 rounds on approach. Well, he's 8th in this field. What about the last 12 rounds? Oh, he's even better than that, where he's 7th in this field. You go out to 36 rounds. Where is he? He's sitting there at 10th in this field. So like another guy, like good with the irons, good with the driver, good with everything except just winning. And Steven, I get it. I know the win equity, and I hate making these bets on dudes that I feel like their win equity is so low, but he's 5th overall in his model behind Scotty, Xander, Colin. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just like he's the next logical guy, and his odds are way the hell out at like, near 30-1. And so I didn't like clicking the button, but he matches everything that I'm looking for on this course and in this tournament. And maybe Tommy Fleetwood can finally close one out.
Did you see how many strokes he lost putting last week at the FedEx St. Jude? Lost 8 strokes putting. Yeah. Like, it's just like he's so good tee to green. And last week should have been a week where the putting was easier. So if we're right about the greens and it's going to mitigate anybody who's a good putter because nobody can putt well on these really fast greens, if that's the case, then yeah, Tommy Fleetwood is probably in the mix here because he's, among the top in this field tee to green. So I get it. That putting scares the death out of me. So maybe it's like a top 10, but and not an outright. But I feel you on Tommy. Like I'm looking for elite tee to green here this week.
Yeah, I mean he's gained approach 9 of the last 10 tournaments, gained ball striking 9 of the last 10 tournaments, gained on tee to green, like you mentioned, 9 of the last 10 tournaments. So it's the consistency is there. Everything's there except the wins. He just can't win, Steven. But like maybe he'll get home for us this week.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last guy for me, another long shot here. Back to the winner without Scotty and Xander market. Also 55-1 like Taylor Pendrith. Matt, I looked at the last 24 rounds. Mm-hmm. There are only 2 players in this field who are top 10 in both driving distance and strokes gain on approach. The first is Xander Schauffele. Obvious, right? Mm-hmm. The second is Nick Dunlap, which very much surprised me. But, I mean, I guess when we're talking about the first amateur to win a PGA Tour event since Phil Mickelson, maybe it shouldn't surprise me that much. So, before last week at the FedEx St. Jude, he had 3 straight weeks where he lost on the greens and was a little bit up and down with his approach game. 2 weeks of gaining, 1 week losing. But last week, 4.9 on approach, 3.5 with the putter. And if our belief is correct that bombing gives you an advantage here, and if you're great on approach as well, that's only going to increase your advantage, then I have to take a guy who has won twice on the PGA Tour this year, who is top 10 in driving distance and approach. And I certainly understand that, some of this might have been on easier greens and far easier fields than what we're seeing at the top of the board here. But I'm also taking him in a market where he doesn't have to beat Scotty and Xander on a course that none of these guys have ever played before. So I was good with 55-1 there on a guy who at a very young age is already showing some win equity.
Yeah, kind of the same deal with me here on my last one. I only have 2 outrights in as we record this. Maybe I had one more in this. But like I said, I just think the odds were right. I just, I didn't see a ton of value.
I've only gone about 2 units, a little more. I usually go 3. Like I'm holding back for maybe a live bet.
So I put in one on Davis Thompson. Thompson, you can find out there about 70-1. He's 7th overall in my model, Steven. And it's like, so you dig,
actually. Yeah,
it's like you dig in and you look and you start to go like, okay, what's going on? Like, if you like off the tee, which we do, and if you like a guy that is pretty high up there in total driving, which means he can hit it far and he's pretty accurate with it all, and you start to go, oh, he scrambles pretty decently. Oh, he's avoids bogeys, bogey avoidance. He's kind of up there as well. He crushes par fives. Like, there's just a lot to like about him, except for the recent iron play. And if you go into like recent approach game, it's not all that great. That said, he has had really good iron play tournaments along the way. So, I mean, if we start to go back before some of the stuff was a little bit shaky, right? You go back to the John Deere one. He was in the green in 4 straight tournaments in that. Yeah, there was a bad one before that, but in 4 more before that, he was in the green. So, like, if you look, this is a guy that can get streaky, at least with the iron, Steven. And so while the form with the irons isn't great, it's not terrible. He lost 0.1 at the Wyndham and 0.07 on approach at the FedEx, right? Like, yeah, he's not dialed, but it's not like killing him either. And so
it's not Fleetwood on the greens.
Yeah. So it's like, if we can just get one of these hot rounds where we see where he gains 2.7 and 3.5 and 2.8 and 3.2 and all of these that he has over the season, then maybe he can get himself into contention. And again, like when you're holding a 70-1, you don't necessarily have to have him win in order to monetize that ticket. If you can get him kind of in a head-to-head situation with another guy out there. So,
and you know what, Matt? You know what stands out to me too? Last 4 events, you're looking at courses, the St. Jude, lots of water, the Wyndham, water, small fairways, positional course. The 2 events across the ocean in Scotland where wind and weather was a concern. He couldn't just go bombs away with the driver for 4 straight events here. I think this is a week where he can go bombs away with the driver.
Yeah. So it's an interesting deal. Look, if you want to be less aggressive, you can find a 10-1 out there on a top 5 for Davis Thompson. If you want to be even less aggressive than that, a top 10 is still going to pay about plus 360 out there on him as well. So again, now you're really cutting down your risk on a dude that you're still getting nearly 4-1, Steven, on a guy who, again, I think fits this course pretty well, and so you don't have to put that whole, amount of money on just the outright on Davis Thompson. You could ladder it. You could go 10-5 and outright, which is probably what I will do with him, even though I only have the outright and the 10 in right now. I'll probably put in a 5 as well and just play on some upside there for Davis Thompson. But a dude that model loved him. I dug in further. I see why the model loved him, and so we're gonna roll with that.
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
Yeah, see, so maybe you'll add him, and maybe I'll add one of yours, and there we go. We'll just round out the card this week. But I did pull back on monetary outlay. Just a caveat here with all of this. It's a course we've never seen before. I don't know how these guys are going to play it. And so, like, that's the other thing, right? If it was a straight-up approach, even if it's a course I haven't seen before, if it was like a pretty straightforward how you go and navigate the course, then I would feel a little bit more confident. But honestly, I don't know how many less than driver holes there's going to be. I don't know if guys are going to, like, try to just bomb it and deal with whatever they deal with, because it is supposed to be 5-inch rough. And so, like, I don't know if they're going to do that, or if they're, like, literally going to just try and play super conservative. I just don't know, Steven. So, like, when there's so many unknowns, I pull back a little bit, because we don't have to fire every single tournament,
No, I agree. 100% agree. I'm holding back a little bit for a live bet opportunity for sure. I think it's the way to go this week.
Guys, everything we do, absolutely free. So we do appreciate you subscribing to the channel here, giving us a thumbs up. And like, if you want to comment in there about what you think about everything, we do appreciate that as well. All of our plays over in the Discord, that is absolutely free as well. TheLines.com, upper right-hand corner, click join the community. Talking about all the sports all year round. For Steven, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your BMW bets.